The National Prosecuting Authority has reached a historic settlement in the SAP bribery case. The global software giant has agreed to pay just over 4 billion rand in fines. SAP is accused of breaching the United States Foreign Corrupt Practices Act by paying bribes to officials at state-owned firms in South Africa and in Indonesia. Now, this is in order to gain lucrative government contracts. Let's get more reactions on this, and I'm joined now by NEDLAC Constituency Head Thulani Tshefuta, who talks to us from Cradock in the Eastern Cape this morning. Mr. Tshefuta, thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with whether you think that this is indeed the best way to deal with corrupt practices by our prosecuting authority.
Well, good morning, Xoli and the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Thank you for this opportunity. We believe that this should only be the starting point. And with it being the starting point, there is a lot more that will still need to be done in dealing with the challenges of corruption. This for us is one of those classical cases that give meaning to what over time we have been very impatient with, and even calling it political rhetoric of state capture, corruption, and all of those. And these are some of those actions that take us a step further in giving meaning to that rhetoric, that there is something that is happening. If you cite these cases to someone who does not have these kinds of confessions, it would be like there was no state capture in South Africa.
Yeah.
So it is good that it is coming from those that have committed it themselves. Of greater importance, Xoli, for us is that we appreciate and understand the fact that contracts of this nature, like SAP was getting, were intended to build capabilities of the state and thereby improve operational efficiencies. And so there were good intentions, which were fraught with selfish and criminal intents along the way. And so it should not be enough that they have confessed in the United States. It should not be enough that they will be paying the fine. A lot more will still need to be done, and we only see this as the starting point.
Well, let's try and explore, therefore, what exactly you mean when you say a lot more needs to be done. An organization that has put it into simple language is the Black Business Council, who have said to this station overnight that individuals must also be held accountable. That means prosecuting people, because oftentimes these companies engage in corrupt practices only to find that they knew all along that at some point they may possibly get caught, and therefore this is priced in. And the damage, though, to the country and indeed whatever departments that may have been looted, that takes years to repair. So again, this is why I'm asking the question, was this the best way to deal with this? Money is indeed, it's important that we get those monies back, but dealing with individuals that were part and parcel of this.
Let me start, Xoli, with the point you conclude on in terms of the damage to the country. There are social effects that come with this damage of this bribery and corruption. And there are equally institutional damages to those organizations that are affected. And thirdly, there is economic damage at a systematic level. Here are the typical and most pragmatic examples of the impact. Today, when we have communities that are affected by lack of water, water that is not supplied consistently, water that is sometimes dirty, water that does not reach certain rural communities, even in peri-urban communities today, it is common sight that you have instances where you don't have water. Many others will not associate it to the very same Department of Water and Sanitation having been party to these types of briberies. What it means is that money that should have gone into infrastructure for water and sanitation has been paid to SAP such that it comes back through bribes into the pockets and the private pockets of officials that work for those departments. Yeah. The same goes with the load shedding that we're experiencing. And therefore, what has to be done, Xoli, is that firstly, the admission of guilt and the payment of the bribe, of the fine, it should not be enough in our view. And what should be done is that firstly, they must disclose the affected officials that they worked with in those institutions. Secondly, there is a clear case of intermediaries that were facilitating these deals here. Those intermediaries must be disclosed and the personalities behind them. Thirdly, they must go to detail and disclose the modus operandi they employed in the operations of this kind of a scheme. Because this is not something that was just operated at face value in the simple course of business. Fourthly, they must agree to be state witnesses for criminal cases in South Africa, and they must pledge their full cooperation until those are resolved. And then, therefore, we would agree that prosecutions must then follow in those.
The capacity of the NPA to indeed carry out these cases in our courts of law, do you have confidence, maybe let me put it simply that way, do you have confidence in the National Prosecuting Authority to do this, given the two test cases, I think, that have completely fallen apart?
The test for any case of this nature will still be in front of the courts. On its side, the National Prosecuting Authority, in this one case only, we must just agree that in the game of football, we call this a through pass, where a far-flung player passes the ball to you in the middle, facing the goalpost, and all you have to do is to place it on the post. And on the side of the strength of the evidence for this case, we have those that are not only alleging that there was this that was happening, they are saying, we were involved, we were party to this, and that should strengthen that case. And the NPA must then channel all its capacities and resources in making sure that it strengthens the cases. Where we also have concern, Xoli, is the fact that cases are not only won on the strength of the evidence and the merit of the issues, there are also procedural issues which can be thwarted by the NPA to a point where they strengthen the case of those that are accused such that they are left scot-free. And so, in this case, we believe that the NPA, with the evidence that has been presented to it, can at least successfully prosecute all those that are involved in this. And again, the time it takes to do all these prosecutions is equally of great concern to us, because it escapes some of the collective memory of society that they have these that have ever happened. And the NPA, and this is not an allegation we are making, but all we are saying is that it must absolve itself of any political interference, not that there is, but it must also not listen and view the cases through the political lens of pressures that may even come from public discourses as we are engaging.
Thulani Tshefuta, thank you very much for your time and indeed your contribution into this discussion. He's NEDLAC's constituency head.